umbrella. I'm going to go over the 12 tribes, and I'm going to add to the first part video that I made regarding the Israelites coming from the diaspora. I'm going to take us in this book called Peoples of the Earth. Peoples of the Earth. This particular book is Africa from the Sahara to the Zambezi. So they have a series of books regarding different types of people all over the world. As you notice, the faces of these people, they are in Central Africa, not in North, not in South, but Central Africa. And so I'm going to take you here because the slave trade happened amongst these areas. First thing okay, in this book, here's the publisher's name, the Danbury Press, a division of Grotland Enterprises, publisher Robert B. Clark, 1973, Europa Verlag. Alright, so let's go deeper into this book. First thing I'm going to do is take you to the Ewe speaking people. Ewe, right? I like to say Hebrew, but this was a language, a decrepit language that was spoken of in West Africa. 700,000 language groups. Kwa, that's another form of the Ewe speaking people. The Kwa also were located in Phoenicia, or northern part of Africa. Their staple foods are maize and yams, which is corn and yams. The Ewe are West African Negroes who live in the tropical rainforests of the coastal areas of Ghana and Togo. They are mainly farmers and fishermen. There are regular markets. They live in towns and villages with outlying hamlets. Each village has a headman and a council. So I'm going to connect the dots on this. Just bear with me as we go over this. A lot of people have probably never heard of the Ewe speaking people, EWE, but let's touch on this. Okay, this is on page 78. The Anglo-Ewe, Ghana, and Togo. Here's a map, another map. As you can see, you see Ghana, and then you see small portions of different other countries around Ghana, below Ghana. You see Togo. Okay, I'll start here. It says, the Anlo, most numerous of the Ewe-speaking peoples, live in southeastern Ghana and southern Togo. Their home is a narrow strip of land where their settlements lie like beads along a string wedged between the sea to the south and lagoons to the north. Here, centered around the Kita Lagoon, the Anlo people make their living by fishing and farming. If you don't know anything about lagoons, lagoons are fairly safe compared to the ocean. You can also swim in a lagoon. It's almost like a giant swimming pool connected to the ocean. Their prolific settlement all along the coast has earned them the name Pan-African fishermen. The history of the Anlo-Ewe people has for centuries been of migration and colonization. Oral tradition and some records suggest that the Ewe-speaking tribes first lived in or around Ketu, near the present Dahomey, Nigeria border. While the details of their migrations are not clear, we do know of their settlements in the ancient walled cities of Natsi in central Togo. It reads, by the 17th century, the Anlo-Ewe tribes were settled where they are now. Until recently, the low-lying coast of sandbars was fringed with coconut palms, but so narrow is the strip, at most 2 miles and sometimes only 100 yards, that, as you can see here, these are the Ewe-speaking people. Notice that they are fishermen. This is how they make a living. The disciples made their living by being fishermen. Mashiach Yahushua went out on the boat with them and also was a fisherman. We know him as being a fisherman. Fishermen of men and fishermen of fish. You can see them here fishing. All right. So this is something that they did in this part of the world as well as in Jerusalem. They were fishermen. It reads here, natural vegetation has been depleted by the spread of villages. Living space is restricted. Kita, on the shore of its lagoon, has 16,000 inhabitants, and Angola, the traditional capital, has 13,000. Drought and flood are further hazards to life and property on the coast, where rainfall can vary from 30 to 50 inches a year. So I want to take you from here down below, and I want to show you the lifestyle of these Ewe people. Very similar to the patriarchs of Israel. And it reads here, and now this is talking about the women. You women, listen up. It says here, fishing is not only essential to their economic life, it is also fundamental in their social system. The men fish while the women trade. A division of labor which gives women the freedom of an independent economic life. They buy the fish from the men, cure the catch, take it to the market, and pocket the profit. Women are also bakers, basket weavers, and even farmers. Men are engaged to do the cultivation. Since wives are bound to contribute only part of their income to the family household, they can acquire a fortune to which their husbands have no claim. It is not unusual to come across families in which the husband is a poor fisherman while the wife is a wealthy trader or farmer. And this goes into the scriptures in Proverbs chapter 31. Who could find a virtuous wife? Right? A virtuous wife, she's going to be in the market. She's going to be trading for her family. Right? So the family never goes broke. Okay? Back in the old days, the men used to go work. Whether they worked in the mines in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. You know, a lot of brothers worked in the coal mines. Down in the south, you have brothers working in the timber mills, and they would be gone for weeks, if not months. They would have families behind. They would have their wives living in a certain part of the country or certain part of the state, and the wives would have 10, maybe 12, 13 children. And so the men, they would take their monies and send the whole check to the wives so the wives could take care of the families. This is what they used to do in the old days. I know because my family was like that. The men, they went out and they worked. They worked hard. They would come home maybe once every month or every other month for the weekend. And then they would go right back to work. In those days, it was hard. So this is what this is like. Okay, the men worked hard being fishermen. The women, they went to the markets, they traded. They weren't disrespectful to their men. They weren't out there committing adultery. They had a job and the men had a job. The women took care of the households. They took care of the children. Let's look down. It reads here on the next paragraph. However, in family and social life, the women almost worship the men. They must kneel respectively when greeting a man. And in marriage, custom demands complete obedience of the wife to the wishes of her husband. See that? The women today don't understand this. This is a strange understanding. But this is the way that the women were in those days. All right? And it was a union. It was teamwork. It reads, should she behave in a disorderly manner, disobey, or allow suspicion of infidelity, she may be beaten. See that? And I'm not in no way telling you brothers to beat your women. In no way. Sisters, if any brother try to beat you, you report them. That should not be going around. Go into 1 Timothy. We should be respecting each other. And we should be able to communicate without putting hands on each other. So I'm just saying, you didn't hear from me to beat your women. Treat each other in love. She addressed her husband as Epho, elder brother, or Wafafo, children's father. What did Abraham call his wife, Sarah? He said it was his sister, right? Isaac did the same thing. He called her his sister. She called him her brother. This is customary going back to the scriptures. Traditionally, a wife never calls him by his personal name. Remember in the book of Tobit? Tobit said that he took not his wife to lust after, but he took her as a sister. So our wives were considered like our sisters. We treated them, they were considered family. It says traditionally a wife never calls him by his personal name. What does Sarah call Abraham? Lord, my sire. Both at home and in public, the animal sexes are segregated. A wife does not enter into conversation with her husband or his friends unless specifically invited to do so. What does the scripture say in 1 Corinthians 13? A woman should not be permitted to speak. They sit separately and rarely even eat together. Men eat with the older sons in one room of the home, while wives and daughters and the younger sons eat in the kitchen. So as you can see right here, there was a system set up. Now look at this sister here. Look at how she organizes this fish. She makes it appealing to the eye for selling to the people in the marketplace. This is Proverbs 30:1. This is a virtuous wife. Her head is covered. She's utilizing a basket, a clean basket. Her clothes, it's warm in this part of the world, but she still maintains having on a dress. And look at all the fish. Now her husband and maybe her brothers that went along with them or her sons caught all this fish, and she's going to be the one that makes the money off this fish. So she kind of had to have a honest understanding of measures and weights. She had to know how to deal with the people of the market because most of the women were the ones shopping at the markets. That's the reason why we got malls today. You ever wonder why the malls are not out of business? Because the women shop. The women like to make deals. They look for sales. They take coupons. There ain't no men in the mall shopping. Back in the early 70s, 80s, there used to be a place to go find women when we were younger. But now it's just a place for shopping. Women go there to shop, to find sales, to find deals. That's why the mall is open. They cater to the women. There are more stores for the women than there are for the men. That's just the way it is. And this is the way it was right here. Getting back to the topic of the ewe people. So let's take it over here to page 83. Page 83, second paragraph. It says, but there is more to Anlo religion than a worshiping the spirits of ancestors. The Anlo believe in the supreme being, Mawu, the creator of all the world and all men. Mawu has neither priests nor shrines. He is invoked directly by individuals in everyday life and at times of crisis, and dubbed the power of the thoughtful, those who keep the commandments, but not of the multitude. Mosai does not care about the multitude. He only cares about the thoughtful, the sincere in heart, right? The contrite spirit. When you go into the book of, Psalms chapter 7 and 11, the Most High is angry with the wicked every day, and he judges the righteous every day. He judges those who keep the commandments every day of the Israelites. It says, legend has it that after the creation, Mawu had disappeared because of the frequent demands made upon him by the people. So this is talking about people always asking for stuff, and the Most High never responded to them, right? Sometimes the Most High won't respond because this is not because you're asking of vain things. But you're going to see as we keep going on, Mawu has a name. This is a decrepit name of a power, all right? Let's go into this other book. All right, so I'm going to take you to this book. It's called the Ewe-Speaking People. The Ewe-Speaking Peoples of the Slave Coast of West Africa, their religion, manners, customs, laws, and languages, and AMP. It was written by Ellis A.B. Alfred Burden, 1852 to 1894. It was published in 1891 by Cornell University Library. I'm going to take you to chapter 3, and let's speak on the Ewe people's God. And we're going to start with the first chapter. It reads, Mawu, the God who ranks first in the religious system of Ewe-speaking peoples, is named Mawu, a word which, besides being a proper name, has also the meaning of the sky, firmament, and rain. It is derived from Wu, to stretch over or overshadow, and the God himself is no other than the indwelling spirit of the firmament, the defied canopy of the heavens. So who could that possibly be? Let's take it to another page. Oh, let's go right here. I'm going to read where I highlighted. We'll start here where I highlighted it. This is on page 34, and it reads, Mawu. Mawu controls the rain supply and keeps a vast store of water in the firmament, which he lets out at will. They know this from Noah's Ark. This seems to be his only function with regard to man, and as the seasons of the slave coast are regular and well defined, and there is rarely either flood or drought, the natives do not often find it necessary to address him. The following reply made by a chief of the Tobas to a missionary who had said his God was good and punished wicked people. So they know that Mawu punishes wicked people. All right? And he's the power of the firmament. So let's take it to page 35. Let's start at the bottom where I have it highlighted. It reads down at the bottom, the Ewe-speaking natives. Then, on learning that the God of whom the missionary spoke had the same dwelling place and the same functions as Mawu, very naturally concluded that Jehovah or Yahawah was only a foreign name for Mawu. So Mawu is the decrepit name for Yahawah, while the missionaries, by a similar process, conceived Mawu to be an obscure recollection of Jehovah or Yahawah. This blending together of Mawu and Yahawah is one of the chief causes of what are called relapse into heathenism. This is what they're saying, but the Ewe-speaking people were praying to their power, which was Yahawah. They knew who their power was. Okay? So just to give you a glimpse of what the Ewe, or who the Ewe people were praying to. They were praying to Yahawah. So when Esau came into Africa, there were a lot of things taking place. A lot of nations decided to join together to fight against Esau. And some of their deals with Esau, some of their treaties with Esau went sour, so they wanted to merge with other people in West Africa. I'm going to read a paragraph of the Ewe-speaking people, which were the people of Wida, which is also called Judah. This is on page 284. The people of Ardra were not warlike. Possibly years of peaceful commerce and the accumulation of wealth had tended to effeminate them. So these people of this kingdom, Ardra, became effeminate because they had the luxuries of life. They got soft. Okay, but they made hasty preparations to meet the enemy. And the king invited the king of Wida. So we know Wida as being Judah, the kingdom of Judah, the kingdom of the Jews in West Africa. So he invited the kingdom of Judah, Wida, to cooperate with him, pointing out that their mutual interests required them to combine. Blinded, however, by trade jealousy, the king of Wida refused all assistance, and the Ardras alone faced invaders. So the king of Wida started to become vain as well. He wanted to have luxuries too. And because of that, his jealousy fueled him to disembark from the kingdom of Adra, with the result that after a 3 days engagement, their army, said to have been 50,000 strong, was dispersed, their king slain, 8,000 men taken prisoners, and the kingdom annexed to Dahomey. This was in 1724. So as you can see right there, what happened to the kingdom of Wida, we succumbed to destruction too after we departed from Adra. Okay, I'm going to turn to page 286 just to give you some more history on this so you can see what happened to the kingdom of Wida. In 1726, Trudeau, having repaired the losses in his army, recommended his designs against the seacoast states and sent to Kufan, king of Wida or Judah, who had only succeeded to the stool the year before, to demand a free passage through the territories for all merchandise. So he's trying to get rich. Kufun, a vain and short-sighted ruler, meaning he didn't have the vision to see what was coming, refused, and Trudeau at once marched against him and encamped on the banks of the creek or lagoon called the Nyin Tissi, about half a mile to the north of Savvy. The Dahomies had no canoes with them, and as the creek was only fordable at one point, a small force might easily have held the passage against a whole invading army. But the Widas, the Judeans, had, after consulting their priests, confided the defense of the ford to their chief god, the Python. So they were worshiping the same thing Moses held up to the Israelites in the wilderness to kneel to, right? They thought that snake god, this is why in the scriptures in the book of Second Kings, they had to do away with that god, with the snake god, right? People started worshiping that thing, and they took it into West Africa. So the Python, whom they worship, and the Dahomies, discovering this, crossed over, killed the serpent, and about 3 o'clock in the afternoon fell suddenly upon the town. The surprise was complete. Not the least resistance was offered, and the inhabitants, seized with a sudden panic, fled towards the sea. The king and some of the chiefs escaped by canoe to Grand Popo, but hundreds were drowned in the lagoons and thousands captured or slain. Savvy was pillaged and burned. This was on February 7, 1727. So a lot of the men of Wida went into captivity after this. It says, to meet the invaders, Kufan is said to have got together an army of 200,000 men, a manifest exaggeration, but the kings of Wida were wealthy, since one of them was able, in 1722, to present Captain Chalonar Ogley of HMS Swallow with 56 pounds weight of gold dust as a reward for having captured off Cape Lopez the 3 pirate vessels under Roberts, which had lately plundered all the ships lying in Wida Road. And Kufan could not doubt higher auxiliaries. The Widas excused their cowardice by charging the Dahomies with cannibalism, saying that they did not fear death in battle, but could not support the idea of being eaten. It is now difficult to say what truth there was in the allegation. But Snellgrave, 1727, strongly inclines to the belief that the Dahomies were cannibals, and some of their customs, such as the pretense of eating the bodies of men killed by lightning, and the cry of the mob at platform sacrifice, "Feed us, we are hungry," may possibly be survivals of such a practice. So this was the downfall of a lot of the tribes in West Africa. They started fighting against each other, and then they were taken into captivity. So now I'm going back to Hebrewisms of West Africa by Joseph J. Williams. And I'm going to take you to the page 16. Notice that Wida fell, Ardra fell, the Dahomey tribes fell. They all fell together, and it was all against each other for vain reasons, right? They all wanted money. They all wanted trade. And so their kings were naive to the European ways of false treaties, right? And they lost everything they had based on it. They lost their land. They lost their people. They had already lost their power, Yahawah. They had stopped worshiping them and started worshiping the snake or the serpent god. So I'm going to go to page 16 of Hebrewisms of West Africa, and notice where these Israelites or these people of West Africa went. And it reads here at the bottom of the page, it says, note, Ellis says, in the southeastern portions of the EU territory, which we were reading about, however, the Python deity is worshipped, and this voodoo cult, with its adoration of the snake god, was carried to Haiti by slaves from Ardra. That's one of the enemies of Wida. And Wida, there's Wida, the EU-speaking people, where the faith still remains today. In 1724, the Dahomeys invaded Ardra, like we just read, and subjugated it. 3 years later, Wida was conquered by the same foe. So Wida was conquered, just like we read. This period is beyond question that in which Haiti first received the voodoo of the Africans. Thousands of Negroes from these serpent-worshipping tribes were at that time sold into slavery and were carried across the Atlantic to the western island, because once they conquered another country, they took their deities and they started worshiping them. So they all fell worshiping false gods. It says they bore with them their cult of the snake. At the same period, EU-speaking slaves were taken where? To Louisiana. So a lot of these Israelites went to where? Louisiana. And this is why you had a lot of Israelites beginning from South Carolina to Connecticut, or South Carolina down into Florida, and then all of a sudden it jumped from there to Georgia and Louisiana. And when you started having the insurrections of them killing slaves, a lot of us started to migrate west into Texas and Chicago and California and so forth. So a lot of the EU-speaking slaves who were Israelites, who were Judeans, went into Louisiana. And this is where you get voodoo down in New Orleans. They were worshiping false deities. Let's go here to page 17. It reads here, note, Ellis observes that the term voodoo should survive in Haiti and Louisiana, and not in the British West India Islands. Will surprise no one who is acquainted with the history of the slave trade. The Tishi-speaking slaves, called Coromantes in the slave dealers' jargon, and who were exported from the European forts on the Gold Coast, were not admitted into French and Spanish colonies on account of their disposition to rebel. And consequently, we read about that in Part 1. And consequently, they found their way into the British colonies, right? So a lot of the brothers who are in Jamaica and the West Indies, we say that they're speaking Jamaican. Really what they're speaking is British. Really what they're speaking is a decrepit form of English from Britain. The only market open to them, while the French and Spanish colonies drew their chief supply from the EU-speaking slaves exported from Wider and Bargadry. See that? The EU-speaking peoples. They were Israelites. Before I close out, I'm going to go to the Peculiar People book again, and I just want to show you on page 35 what it says about Wida. It says, just arrived in the ship of Marlborough, 300 Negroes, directly from Wida, a country greatly preferred to any other throughout the West Indies and inferior to none on the coast of Africa. Okay, I'm going to conclude with that right now. So the Israelites came from various parts of West Africa, and I'm just trying to signify the diaspora of the Israelites who came from West Africa into the Americas and how they got here. So we broke the Most High's laws, statutes, and commandments, and we ended up in America, which is called Mystery Babylon. And with that, I'm going to say shalom. Till next time.
I took you from the pastures and from following the sheep to be prince over my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone and have destroyed all the enemies in your path. I will make you a great name among the great ones of the earth. I will assign a place for my people in Israel. There I will plant them, and they shall dwell in their own land.